The
can
bus
use
screeched to
this.
a halt, brakes
It's still
whining
valid.
against wet asphalt, and Ethan Cole ran straight into the road. A horn blared, tires skidded, someone shouted. He didn't stop. His coat flared behind him as he reached the other side, breath sharp, eyes locked on the woman stepping down from the bus. People moved around her, annoyed, rushing, alive in their own urgency, but Ethan saw only her. She held the railing as she descended, slow, careful. Worn shoes, thin coat, head slightly bowed. Ethan's hand shook as he pulled something from his pocket, a small, creased bus ticket. He stepped closer, his voice catching halfway out of his throat. "Excuse me." She didn't look up. He swallowed hard and held the ticket out. "You can use this," he said quietly. "It's still valid." For a second, nothing happened. Then she took it. Her fingers brushed his, and everything inside him stopped. She froze too. Not completely. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But he felt it, that subtle shift, like a memory slipping through a crack. Then she whispered, barely audible over the city noise, "Is this still enough for one more ride with you, Ethan?" The world collapsed. The sound of traffic faded into nothing. The cold disappeared. Time folded in on itself. Ethan staggered back like he'd been hit. "No," he breathed. "No, that's not." His voice broke. She finally looked up. 10 years hadn't erased her. Not really. Time had carved into her, yes, into her face, her posture, her eyes, but it was still her. Mara. He dropped to his knees right there on the street. People stared now. Some slowed, some filmed. He didn't care. "Mara," he whispered, like saying her name might shatter her again. "It's you. It's actually you." Her expression tightened. Not relief, not joy. Fear. Real, immediate fear. She stepped back. "No," she said under her breath. "No, this was a mistake." "Mara, wait." But she was already turning, already moving, already disappearing into the crowd like she'd done 10 years ago. And just like that, she was gone again. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark of his penthouse, the city glowing beneath him, and touched food on the table, and touched wine in his hand. The bus ticket was still in his grip, or what was left of it. He hadn't realized he'd crushed it. 10 years. 10 years of silence, questions, ghosts. 10 years of walking the same streets, every single day, pretending it was routine, pretending it was nothing. But it had always been about her. Always. People thought Ethan Cole walked because he was disciplined, focused, grounded despite his wealth. No one knew the truth. He walked because stopping meant remembering, and remembering meant facing the moment she disappeared. No note, no explanation, just gone. Until today. He stood abruptly, grabbing his coat. If she was out there, no, she was out there. He'd seen her. He wasn't losing her again. The next morning, Ethan was back on the street before sunrise. No driver, no security, just him. He retraced every step, every angle, every possible direction she could have gone. He asked people, quietly at first, "Have you seen her?" About this height dark hair keeps to herself. Most shrugged. Some ignored him. A few gave vague answers that led nowhere. By noon, frustration crept in. By evening, desperation. He returned the next day, and the next, and the next. Something shifted inside him as the days passed. He started noticing things he'd never allowed himself to see. The long lines outside shelters. The way people guarded small belongings like they were everything. The quiet exchanges. The silent understanding. Lives moving parallel to his, completely invisible until now. One evening, exhaustion pushed him into a small community center he'd walked past 100 times before. Warm light spilled out onto the sidewalk. Voices, laughter, the clatter of dishes. He hesitated only a second before stepping inside. A woman behind the counter glanced at him. "You here to help or to eat?" Ethan blinked. "Help," he said. She handed him an apron without another question. "Kitchen's that way." And just like that, the billionaire became invisible. He washed dishes. He wiped tables. He carried trays. No one cared who he was. No one asked. And strangely, it felt right. Days turned into a routine. Morning walks, afternoon searching, evenings at the shelter. He stopped looking like himself. Less polished, less distant, more present, more human. Then one night, he saw her. She stood near the back wall, half hidden, like she didn't want to exist fully in the space. Mara, alive, real, close. Ethan's chest tightened as he stepped toward her slowly. Mara, her head snapped up, their eyes locked. Everything else disappeared. For a moment, just a moment, something cracked in her expression. Then it shut down instantly. She turned and walked out. "No, wait." He followed, pushing through the door into the cold night. But she was already moving fast, slipping between shadows, vanishing like smoke. Ethan stopped, breathing hard. Not chasing, not this time, because now he understood something he hadn't before. She wasn't just hiding. She was protecting something. Maybe herself. Maybe him. Either way, running after her would only make her disappear faster. So he went back inside. And the next day, he returned. And the next. And the next. He didn't look for her anymore. He worked. Quietly. Consistently. No expectations. No demands. Just presence. Then one evening, as he stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, hands deep in soapy water, a towel landed beside him. He looked up. Mara stood there. Not close. Not far. Just there. She didn't meet his eyes. Didn't speak. But she didn't leave either. Ethan dried his hands slowly. "Thank you," he said softly. No response. But she stayed. And somehow, that was enough. If this story is pulling you in so far, you already know this isn't just about love. It's about what people do when they're given a second chance they don't feel they deserve. Stick with it, because what happens next changes everything. The next evening, Ethan arrived earlier than usual. He didn't rush, didn't scan the room, didn't betray the quiet hope sitting in his chest. He just worked. Plates, water, silence. But he felt her before he saw her. That same stillness, that same shift in the air. Mara stood near the far table, folding napkins with slow, deliberate movements, like she was measuring every second she allowed herself to stay. Ethan picked up two paper cups on his break. Cheap coffee, no sugar. He walked over, careful, like approaching something fragile that could disappear if touched too quickly. He set one cup down on the table near her. Not too close, just within reach. "You still take it black," he said quietly. Mara's hands paused. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't look at him. Then, slowly, she sat down. Not across from him, not beside him, just close enough. Ethan sat too, leaving space between them. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of everything unsaid. He took a sip of his coffee. "So," he said gently, "you're still better at disappearing than I am at finding." A faint breath escaped her. Not quite a laugh. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was rough, like it hadn't been used for long conversations in years. "I should have been here a long time ago," Ethan replied. That made her look at him. Really look at him. "You don't belong here." "I didn't belong anywhere after you left." The words slipped out before he could soften them. Her expression tightened instantly. "There it is," she muttered. "That's why I left." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means everything became about me." Her voice sharpened slightly. "Your choices, your life, your direction. Like I was some center of gravity you couldn't escape. You were my life, Mara. And that was the problem." Silence crashed between them again. Ethan leaned back slightly, absorbing that. "I would have fixed it," he said quietly. "Whatever it was, you didn't have to vanish." Her jaw clenched. "You think it was that simple?" "Yes." She shook her head slowly, almost sadly. "My mother was dying, Ethan." The words landed heavy. "I know," he said. "You told me she was sick, but—" "No," she cut in. "You knew she was sick. You didn't know what it cost." Ethan's chest tightened. "How much?" Mara let out a dry, humorless breath. "Everything." He waited. She stared at the table. The treatments weren't covered. Not fully. Every week, there was another bill. Another procedure. Another urgent decision. Her voice wavered but didn't break. "I sold everything I had. Then I borrowed. Then I begged." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew what you'd do. I would have helped you." "Yes," she said, finally looking at him again. "You would have." "Then why?" "Because it wouldn't have been help, Ethan. It would have been everything." He didn't understand. Not fully. "I had nothing left," she continued. "No money, no safety, no control. The only thing I still had was the ability to choose what I lost next." His voice softened. "You didn't have to lose me. I already was," she said. That hit harder than anything else. Ethan sat there, stunned. "I watched you," she went on. "Watched how fast your world was growing. Investors, pressure, expectations. You were building something huge, and I was—" she gestured to herself vaguely, "falling apart. You think I would have chosen any of that over you?" "You wouldn't have had to choose," she replied. "That's the point. You would have given it all up without even thinking. And then one day, you would have resented me for it. I would never." "You don't know that," she snapped, emotion finally cracking through. "People don't know what they'll become when they lose everything." Ethan went quiet, because part of him wasn't sure. She exhaled slowly, calming herself. "So I made the choice before it could destroy both of us. And you think disappearing was better?" His voice dropped. "You think 10 years of not knowing if you were alive was better?" Her eyes flickered with guilt. "No," she whispered. "But it was the only thing I could control." They sat there, the weight of years pressing down on them. Then Mara pushed the coffee slightly away. "I shouldn't have said anything at the bus stop," she murmured. "That was selfish." Ethan shook his head immediately. "No, don't say that. It pulled you back into something you already survived." "I never survived it," he said. That made her still. "I just got better at pretending." Mara looked at him differently then, not as a stranger, not as a memory, but as someone still carrying the same wound. You built everything, she said softly. I saw it. The headlines, the interviews, the numbers, none of it mattered. That's easy to say when you have it. It's easy to say because I know what it couldn't buy. Their eyes met again. This time, neither looked away immediately. Something fragile shifted, not healed, but open. A small voice in the room called out for help moving supplies. Mara stood quickly, raking the moment. I have to go. Ethan nodded. Okay. She hesitated, just for a second. Then she picked up the coffee. That tiny action felt louder than anything she could have said. Days passed. They didn't talk much, not like before. There were no long conversations, no deep confessions, just small moments, shared space. She would sit when he brought coffee. He would leave before she did. Neither pushed, neither ran. Until one night, the temperature dropped suddenly. A harsh, biting cold swept through the city. The shelter filled beyond capacity. People crowded in, breath visible in the air. And then, the heat stopped. At first, no one noticed. Then someone did. Then everyone did. Panic spread quickly. It's the boiler. Someone shouted. It's not working. Staff scrambled. People complained. Some started leaving, choosing the cold outside over the uncertainty inside. Ethan moved toward the back room, where the system was. I'll take a look, he said. A volunteer raised an eyebrow. You know what you're doing. Ethan shook his head slightly. Not really. Then why? Because no one else is moving. That was enough. He pushed the door open and stepped into the cramped, dimly lit boiler room. Old pipes, loud clanks, faint leaking sounds. He crouched, examining what he could. Nothing made sense. He exhaled sharply. Of course, he muttered. Why would it be simple? A soft sound behind him made him turn. Mara stood in the doorway, watching him. She didn't speak, just stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Then she walked over, knelt beside him, and pointed at a valve. This sticks sometimes, she said quietly. Ethan blinked. You know this system. I've been here longer than you. Right. He nodded. Okay, so what do I do? Not you, she corrected gently. Why? And just like that, they worked together. No tension, no past, just two people solving a problem, side by side. He followed her instructions. She steadied his hands when they slipped. He laughed once, under his breath, when something nearly snapped loose. She almost smiled. Minutes stretched, cold pressed in. Then, a loud clang, a rush of sound, and warmth began to creep back into the pipes. They both froze, waiting. Then slowly, heat returned, faint at first, then stronger. Voices outside shifted from panic to relief. Ethan leaned back against the wall, breathing out a laugh. We did it. Mara sat beside him, equally still. Neither moved to leave. For the first time since finding her, they weren't running, they weren't hiding, they were just there, together. And it felt real, not like memory, not like regret, but something fragile and new. Ethan reached into his pocket slowly, pulled out another bus ticket. He placed it gently between them. One ride, he said quietly. You choose where it goes. You choose when it ends. Mara stared at it, then at him, long, carefully, like she was measuring something deeper than words. The room was silent except for the hum of returning heat. And this time, she didn't look away. Mara didn't touch the ticket immediately. She just stared at it, then at Ethan, like she was trying to understand what he was really offering. Not control, not rescue, choice. You don't get it, she said quietly. Then help me understand, Ethan replied. Her eyes dropped back to the ticket. This isn't small, Ethan. What you're asking. I'm not asking for forever. That's what makes it dangerous, she said. Small things, they grow. Ethan nodded slowly. Only if you let them. A long silence stretched between them. The hum of the boiler filled the space, steady now, warm. Mara reached out. Her fingers hovered over the ticket. Then she picked it up. Ethan didn't move, didn't breathe. One ride, she repeated softly. That's it. One ride, he confirmed. And I decide where it goes. Yes. And when it ends. Yes. She studied him one last time. Tomorrow, she said. Ethan blinked. Tomorrow. Early, she added, standing up, before the city gets loud. Then she walked out. No hesitation, no looking back. But she took the ticket with her. And for the first time in 15 years, Ethan felt something close to peace. He didn't sleep much. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. A quiet, steady kind that sat deep in his chest. Morning came slowly. Gray light spilled across the city as Ethan stood at the bus stop, hands tucked into his coat, eyes scanning every movement without looking desperate. He saw her before she reached him. Mara walked with the same careful rhythm, measured, controlled, but there was something different. She wasn't avoiding the world. She was choosing to step into it. She stopped a few feet away. You're early, he said. You're always early, she replied. That almost sounded like before. Almost. The bus pulled up with a hiss. Doors opened. She stepped on first. Ethan followed. They didn't sit together immediately. She chose a seat by the window. He took the one across the aisle. The bus jerked forward. Silence wrapped around them. But it wasn't heavy anymore. Just unfamiliar. So, Ethan said after a while, where are we going? Mara kept her eyes on the passing streets. Somewhere you wouldn't go. That could be a lot of places. Exactly. He smiled faintly. They rode in silence for several stops. People got on, got off. Life moved around them. Then Mara rang the bell. The bus slowed. They stepped off into a quieter part of the city. Less polished. More real. Ethan looked around. This is where you've been. For a while. She started walking. He followed. No questions. Just presence. They passed small shops. Worn buildings. A corner store with flickering lights. Eventually, she stopped in front of a modest building. Paint peeling. Windows cracked but clean. This is as far as the ride goes, she said. Ethan nodded. He didn't argue. Didn't push. Okay. She studied him, like she expected resistance. When it didn't come, something in her expression softened. Why aren't you asking to come in? She asked. Because you didn't invite me. Another pause. Then, come in, she said. Simple, unceremonious. But everything, the apartment was small. One room, bare essentials. But it was hers. Ethan stepped inside carefully, like entering something sacred. Mara set her bag down. You can sit, she said. He did. A worn chair. She moved around quietly, pouring water into 2 cups. No performance. No apology. Just reality. You don't have to fix anything, she said without turning around. I know. You don't have to offer anything either. I know. She handed him the cup. Their fingers brushed again. This time, neither pulled away immediately. Then why are you here? She asked. Ethan looked at her. Not at the room. Not at the circumstances. At her. Because you're here. That answer lingered. Mara sat across from him. For a while, they just talked. Not about the past. Not about pain. About small things. Safe things. The way the neighborhood changed at night. The best time to avoid crowded buses. How bad the coffee was at the shelter. And somehow, those small conversations felt bigger than anything they'd said before. Time passed without pressure, without weight, until Mara stood up again. That's it, she said. Ethan nodded. One ride. He agreed. He stood too. No hesitation. No trying to stretch the moment. He walked to the door. Paused. Same time tomorrow, he asked gently. Mara looked at him. Long. Careful. Then she reached into her pocket. Pulled out the bus ticket. Held it between them. You said it renews by choice. It does. She folded it once, twice, then handed it back to him. Then ask me again tomorrow. Ethan took it. Slowly. Okay. He stepped outside. The door closed softly behind him. And this time, it didn't feel like loss. Days turned into something new. Not routine. Not yet. But something close. Every morning, a bus ride. Different routes. Different stops. Same quiet understanding. Some days they talked more. Some days barely at all. But neither disappeared. And that was everything. Mara didn't become who she used to be. Ethan didn't try to bring her back to it. They met somewhere in between, where things were honest, unpolished, real. Weeks passed, then months. The city shifted seasons slowly. Cold softened. Light stretched longer into evenings. And one afternoon, Ethan arrived at her building with something in his hands. A small, wrapped canvas. Mara opened the door. Eyed it immediately. What's that? Something I think you forgot you still have. She frowned slightly. Ethan, just open it. Reluctantly, she took it. Unwrapped it slowly, then stopped. Inside, a blank canvas, and a set of paints. Simple, not expensive, not extravagant. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edges. She started. You don't have to be who you were, he said gently, but you don't have to lose it either. Her eyes didn't leave the canvas. I haven't painted in years. I know. Silence filled the room. Then, I don't know if I can. That's okay. Another pause. Then she looked up at him. Stay, she said. He didn't hesitate. I will. Months later, the apartment looked different. Still small, still simple, but alive. Color touched the walls now. Not perfect, not finished, but growing. Mara stood by the window, brush in hand, sunlight catching in her hair. Ethan watched from the chair. Quiet. Present. She stepped back from the canvas, studied it, then glanced at him. What do you think? He smiled. I think you never lost it. She rolled her eyes slightly, but there was warmth there. Real warmth. On the table between them, a folded bus ticket, worn at the edges. Still there, still chosen, not because it was needed, but because it meant something. And as the light filled the room, it was clear. He hadn't saved her. She hadn't completed him. They had simply chosen to stay, one day at a time. If this story stayed with you, then you already understand something most people miss. Real connection isn't built on grand gestures, it's built on showing up when it's hardest. If you believe in stories like this, make sure you like the video, drop a comment about the moment that hit you the most, and subscribe for more stories that don't just entertain, but stay with you.